I am Rad Cyborg Alien, and I just watched Overlord. This was a damn good movie. We start off with Overlord, the title of the movie, stretched and covering the entire screen. And it looks old school, like you're watching a 1940s or, 1970s era movie maybe. But the movie takes place in like the 40s, and it has these GI American paratroopers headed into Nazi-occupied France. And the movie starts off just straight away. The paratroopers are on the plane, and you have your general beginning war scene where you kind of get to know everybody. I really liked this movie. The pacing was really good. This was going to be one of my only tiniest complaints, which, trust me, it's very small. But maybe the very beginning opening scene when you're meeting everyone, the banter in the plane, that might have taken a little too long. Maybe they talked just a tad bit. But the whole beginning in the plane is awesome. There is this sergeant whom I absolutely loved. He's so badass. He's like leaning over his soldiers and he's talking to them while they're trying to, get prepared for parachuting, a plunge, a massive ride. All of a sudden, in the midst of them talking, just an explosion hits. Maybe the side of the plane, maybe it's like shrapnel, maybe it's a nearby plane, and parts of the plane fly and hit the plane they're in. But anyway, I swear, in the beginning of this movie, this badass sergeant who's trying to pump his men up, the door to the fucking airplane is wide open, and he's hanging right by the door, and the ocean is below, and there's other planes catching on fire going down, and this badass sergeant, with an explosion right behind his head, maybe 10, 30 feet away or something, he's got this big grin on his face. But anyway, sadly, he doesn't make it to the end of the movie. So, mild spoiler, but straight away I loved the sergeant. He was badass. Now, once our paratroopers, their plane goes down and they end up, parachuting, the action is immediate. The pacing for this movie is a derailed train just rocketing down the rails at like 1940s engine power. I don't know, but the pace is fast, alright? Which I loved. Immediately, one of the main characters is just like plunged into a lake or a stream or some shit, and he's got to cut his way out of his parachute. And the action's relentless, so the movie really gets going very straight away, and it doesn't really let up in the first act of the movie. Now, I want to talk about atmosphere of this movie. In my Halloween 2018 review, I docked it a little bit in my review for atmosphere. It wasn't at all bad, it's just it didn't really nail atmosphere the way I really, really wanted it to. Now, I'm going to have to make an entire video and talk about atmosphere sometime and really define what I mean. To sum it up quickly, atmosphere is not just one thing. It's the look, it's the dialogue, it's the lighting, it can be the music, it's just the whole entire package grouped together. And that is pretty much what I mean by atmosphere, but I give examples like in the movie Alien has a great damn atmosphere. The movie Predator, the original with Schwarzenegger, has great atmosphere, even in broad daylight in the jungle. Of course, a movie like Exorcist has great atmosphere. These are movies that when you think of them, they have great damn atmosphere. And it doesn't have to be slow and spooky atmosphere. Atmosphere in the first Terminator is great atmosphere. There's dread. And Halloween 2018, I said, pretty much lacked dread. Well, this movie has great atmosphere. And from the beginning, throughout the entire thing, I liked it. There's a scene when they're in the forest, when they first land, and just there's the lighting and the silhouettes in the trees and the ambient sounds, the soundtrack, everything works together to create this crushing atmosphere, and the dread builds. And that's where it kind of did really good versus, say, Halloween 2018. Again, I liked Halloween 2018, but the atmosphere was a bit low on the scale, whereas Overlord cranks up the atmosphere and does a damn good job of it. Next, I want to say how this movie has a damn tight script. I noticed that only 2 people worked on this movie. I forget their names, but let me see, I can check. Mark L. Smith and Billy Ray, it seems. Only 2 people wrote this movie, Mark L. Smith and Billy Ray. This is something that I've come to think about, that movies written by too many people can sometimes hinder it. This movie had a duo of just 2 guys that cranked together and popped out a good, tight screenplay, and that really helped it. I've noticed that a lot of movies that seem to have a lot of troubles, it's like written by like 4 different damn people, and I keep noticing that sometimes it's a bit scattered, and it feels like the writers are playing tug of war with the emotions of the movie, the tone of the movie, maybe the atmosphere. Some of them want to inject more humor, some want it to be more horror, and that's another thing that I had with Halloween was it lost its tone that I wanted when it came to comedy. And now that brings me to this movie. It stayed on target with the tone. It absolutely... This is what I'm talking about, people. This is it right here. Overlord is a movie. Thank you so much, writers of Overlord. They made a horror movie, straight up, with no call to attention comedy. There was no moments where it just seems like the movie stopped just so that a comedy scene could take place. Whereas, again, in Halloween 2018, I have to compare it just to show you what I mean. Halloween 2018 was great, and then right in the middle of the dread, a little kid will start joking, which was hilarious, but it didn't belong in the movie, in my opinion. Or 2 cops sitting in their cop cars would start joking about a sandwich or something. It was a little funny, but it didn't belong in the movie. It's like right in the midst of Michael Myers' presence, these on-the-nose comedy scenes took place. And that's my biggest complaint with modern horror, that Overlord, thankfully, does not do. Overlord absolutely captures pure, definite horror without on-the-nose comedy. Believe me, guys, a horror movie can absolutely have some comedy, but it's got to be woven in with the scene and not calling attention to itself. But anyway, I'll explain all that some other time, and in maybe a different video. But yes, movies can have comedy. I like Predator. I like the very tiny, itsy-bitsy amount of comedy that was in like the very first Alien or Aliens. Those movies do comedy perfectly, and they go and they're interwoven with the movie. They do not stop scenes and call attentions to themselves, saying, "Look here, this is the part where you're supposed to laugh." That's not what I like. That can be in certain movies. Like, I do love movies, but those aren't straight up horror movies, though. If you're going to make a straight up horror movie, I want it to be straight up without call attention comedy. Or if you're going to make a movie like maybe one of the Evil Dead Part 2 or something, that kind of calls attention to itself and it's hilarious, but it's supposed to damn be that way. So I do like straight up horror, and Overlord delivers on that. Now, some of the music was absolutely great. I didn't notice it a lot of the times, but there is this part where the main character gets down into this, into the laboratory. I don't want to give too much away. I try to keep everything spoiler free, but basically the story is they have to work their way up to this damn church, which again, this is atmosphere, but this is atmosphere with the story, They got to get to this church and they have to destroy something in the church to help the Allies. Like, the Allies can't land on this beach that they need to land on until something in this church, like a transmitting thing, is destroyed. So when one of the main characters gets inside the belly and the bowels of this damn church, the music kicks on, and it's like this ticking clock, and it's hard for me to explain, but the music, at least in that lab part, when it's just him, does a good job. And that'll bring me around to the characters. Everyone in this movie did a damn good job. None of them was really big names or anything, which was fine. The acting was not amazing, of course. This was straight up horror, and it didn't have, like, say, the names and the good, great actors of Halloween 2018. This movie had very decent actors. I did like them. And the characters were really good. You had this Italian wise guy, cut-up guy that was delivering sort of one-liners and giving commentary on stuff, and he kind of had a Joe Pesci type vibe to him, just a little bit, like, you know, what are you fucking doing? You gonna take pictures? The fuck is this shit? You gonna take a picture while a fucking zombie's chewing my damn face? The fuck are you doing? Put the damn camera away, you fucking freak. We're gonna get shot out here with that fucking bright light bulb. You know what I mean? Sorry for the bad impression, but I'm a cyborg and I download many super fucking impressions, and that's how I do these things. But anyway, I apologize. So you got him, you got, like, you know, some of the other guys, every character you care about. That is another thing that rubbed me a little bit on the wrong side, that came out wrong, of Halloween 2018 is, aside from Laurie Strode, I didn't care about many of the characters. I only cared about Jamie Lee Curtis's character the most. You know, and of course I was rooting for Michael Myers to kill all the other fuckers, because, you know, that's how that goes. You don't really care about them. But I argue that it's important to kind of care about the characters, but Halloween 2018 failed in trying to make me want to care about these people just because they were goofy and funny and cutting jokes all the time. But in Overlord, I really did actually care about the characters, you know? And it wasn't because they were all cracking jokes. Some of them were, but, you know, for the most part, they were just realistic characters with fears and desires, but done well, though. Again, the screenwriting was really good, so I really liked it a lot. Another thing I want to bring up is when the main character is down in the belly of the laboratory, and there's all this shit going on, and there's, like, fucking a zombie type thing with its damn... Oh, man, as a horror fan, this shit was great. There's like a zombie head with its spinal cord fucking dangling. And the zombie head, when he discovers it, the zombie head almost talks to him. And it's like, nah, get away from me, you idiot. And he's got to fucking go over here, and he finds other shit. The set piece down in this lab, this Nazi fucking lab, is insane. It's got a bunch of cool shit in there that you would want in a fucking spooky ass set piece. But what I liked is it reminded me of a fucking video game. It kind of reminded me like if they fucked up and fucked Wolfenstein into Resident Evil or some shit, you know? I really appreciated that because, I don't know, I was just getting Resident Evil vibes from this shit. But like the video game, the first video game, you know? It wasn't a mansion, it's a fucking laboratory, but you know what I mean? That shit was kind of awesome. Let's see, there's just all this spooky shit going on down in this Nazi laboratory. I wanted to say that it was so cool because when my dude was by himself, the protagonist, and he's just sneaking around down there, and he was sort of on a reconnaissance mission. He wasn't supposed to be. That ain't why he was there. He got split up from his people, his group, his buddies. But he started reminding me of like Luke Skywalker. It almost felt like Star Wars, like he was sneaking around the Death Star or some shit, and he felt like he was going to rescue somebody. And I'm like, how the fuck does this Overlord movie, which is a rated R straight up horror movie, actually manage to remind me of Star Wars more than modern damn day Star Wars? Don't get me wrong, this was just a very tiny small scene that just suddenly reminded me of Star Wars, but I don't know why. It did. Just this guy sneaking around And there's all these evil bad guys all over the place, and he finds shit that he ain't supposed to see, and he's got to get the fuck out of there, and he goes to escape. That was really cool. I enjoyed that a lot. Felt like a video game, felt sort of tiny bit like Star Wars, and it definitely sort of felt like Resident Evil, but all drenched and soaked in World War II Nazi horror zombie type shit though. Constant horror, atmosphere, and dread. I loved it. It was great. Now, unfortunately, for some damn reason, this movie flopped.
And I blame everyone. What happened, people?
Why didn't we all go in droves to see this? Well, I have a theory of what happened. First of all, I didn't even know about this damn movie. I just stumbled upon it. I was like, what the hell is Overlord? The title immediately caught me, and I was like, I want to go see whatever Overlord is. And I looked it up, and I was like, holy shit, I want to see this shit. It's a horror movie. I'm a big horror fan. I didn't know much about it, but I looked up the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. It got pretty good reviews, so I was like, well, I'm going to go fucking see this shit. And I was blown away. I loved it, but I don't think that it got enough attention because I didn't even know about it. Another thing that I think they really fucked up on was that this movie really should have came out in October. I really think that people were tired of the whole horror and the whole Halloween scary, spooky atmosphere that Halloween brings, and it's like everybody blew their damn load for Halloween, and now they wanted to see The Grinch. And let me take a wild check really quick. What do we find? Weekend box office. The Grinch wins with 66 million. Overlord and Girl in the Spider's Web snubbed. Now, I looked into Girl with the Spider's Web, and I can see why that might have got snubbed out, but damn it, it sucks that Overlord did. Overlord came out at the wrong time. I really just think that hurt it. People began to get in a jolly mood, and people were not ready to see a hard horror movie, and I think that hurt the movie. If you have a chance to watch Overlord, I highly recommend it. If it's still in theater, go watch Overlord. When it comes out on Blu-ray, go watch it. I'm going to go ahead and review the movie, and I'm going to have to give it a damn 7 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. It, of course, wasn't perfect. It's not going to win any Oscars. Of course not. It's a straight-up horror movie. It almost felt like a B horror movie, which I actually kind of liked. But the great thing about it is it reaches high, and it sometimes feels like just a straight-up hard fucking war movie, just a World War II movie. Like, if you cut out all the supernatural or the zombie shit, it still absolutely would work as a straight up war movie. Or if you took out all the war stuff and somehow just made it a creepy little French village and just replaced the soldiers with guys creeping around trying to figure out what's going on in their village, and it was a straight horror movie without the war, it would work as that too. It was a tight script, damn good acting, considering, and which, damn, it had Kurt Russell's son in it. I was watching that shit and I didn't even recognize him or know anything about it. But my boy Jack Burton, his son, is basically in the movie, pretty much. Russell's son is in the movie, and he does a good job. Also, I want to mention really quick to the main bad guys. I will say why this movie couldn't have got an 8 and I give it a 7 is because the bad guys were creepy and badass, and trust me, there's some amazing, gory, fucking badass, crunching, bone crunchy, death metal fucking fight scenes with twitching guys coming out at the camera and
Acting fucking spooky.
And all that stuff was good, but there was no gripping, like, Overlord bad guy, which is weird. The name of the movie is Overlord, but there is a main bad guy that Kurt Russell basically gets. Kurt Russell's son or whatever gets into a fight, and the fight's badass, but he is not the head honcho evil guy, and you don't really meet a head honcho evil guy. And I would have kind of liked like one of the evil head scientists, the evil Nazi scientist guys, to give just a tiny speech of what's going on. Not much, don't get me wrong. I don't want like this huge, long drawn out cliche. This is why we're going to do this and we're going to take over. There's a little bit of that in there, but it's sprinkled. And I just wanted one truly evil guy, and there wasn't really anybody that really struck massive fear. It was more of like just simply a badass evil bastard. But that's all I'm going to say. It could have reached higher with like a really, really smart bad guy. I think the main bad guy that you see in the movie, he's not like, he's a bastard and a butthead, but he's not like extremely smart, and he's not extremely, he's evil, but he's not like a mad scientist type evil. I guess that's what I wanted to say. There is a mad scientist type evil guy, but he just didn't fully like get enough presence, I guess you could say. But anyway, very mild complaint. That is about why I would say it couldn't reach an 8. Anyway, I still rate Overlord a 7 out of 10. I really enjoyed the movie. The movie
was fucking
awesome.
I liked it a lot. A 6 is just above average. Remember, 5 is average. A 6 is just above average. So, Overlord getting a 7, it's a few steps above average, I think. It is what it set out to be, and it nailed it. It wasn't reaching for this high plateau of classic horror like The Exorcist of Alien. It wasn't reaching for that. What it was reaching for was just a heart-pounding, derailed train action movie, and it is a war movie. And it nailed what it set out to do. And for that, we have to stand and applaud it. It absolutely nailed and accomplished the tone that it set out to do. So 7 out of 10 for Overlord. Go see it. When it comes out on Blu-ray, I'm definitely going to get it. When it comes out on Blu-ray, you guys need to get it. I don't think there's going to be a sequel. They kind of hinted a sequel, but unfortunately, I guess it flopped, which it sucks because I like straight-up horror movies like Overlord without injected comedy every 30 minutes. So, I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you for watching the review. Try to watch Overlord if you can. Support these hard R, straight-up, no-nonsense, tight screenplay horror movies. We need more of them. If you want to do something fly, fire up that like button and subscribe. Thanks for watching. And guess what? I'm a cyborg.
And I'm an alien.
And I want to get back to Mars. So help me. I got 4 kids to feed.